Hello, this is a short video affidavit regarding how an affidavit is where people give a sworn testimony. That is true always, not denying exceptions. And this is not just against me, but the people. You have to ask people questions correctly. In other words, in relationship to actually recorded. Predicate acts leading up to the World Trade Center attack context. Identity ground locations involved. Washington, D.C. in the World Trade Center. In that context, even inside the Ninth Circuit Court, it was proven afterwards post-dated documents had been shown to the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center. And they ruled they'd been filed late. It was proven afterwards they'd been brought to the court on time. They'd been time-stamped on time. So they had insidiously been post-dated from inside the court with people I did and didn't know different ways. And can show, prove, were involved with a method that has everyone as methods, creating instances and having instances made up, using their names and everyone else's names. Orange and Branch, all private tied to them, overt criminal enterprises, private, everything else, all identity ground locations involved with it. In recorded, simple way. Method keeping everyone, that's why we have interbranch forging and switching names. Dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court, with Harvard courts, and other courts with those people, and police forms, former director of the FBI in his defendant capacities, people associated with the depositions of his co-defendants, leading up to a 2006 case. Part of a district court case in Connecticut. I didn't know that at the time. And where I did know it, I was already trying to report it. I tried to ask a doctor for help because people asked me for help. Because judges and prosecutors that were involved with the deposition of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin's defendant capacities, was involved with them, with those locations, and with other people's names. Where and how they were simultaneously using themselves, fabricating audio and video with interbranch locations and with locations on and off campuses, in collusion with them with that. And so they're hiding behind what CNN reported and demonstrated are criminally foreign influenced readings of statutes, roles, and uses of that, that are recorded simply bound. Now this is locations next to the campuses that have connections. All kind of fire departments. This is how they have the nervous system of that stupid with service desks of all natures tied to the politics, what everyone calls politics that is not politics. That left suburbs the way they are, let alone the people stacking in New York City. Let alone, this is hundreds of nations at once. Vaccines to campus dons with stolen name. This is inter-campuses and intra-campuses, a method that it keeps connections it keeps the intelligence community involved with the criminally foreign influenced instances creation. For example, and uses of that, where and how we are an exploited fact treatment nature. Kevin, no, that's not his name. I forgot. Someone there was people with the soccer teams. Is associated with a Scalora family also. I never saw a Claudia Scalora on my street, and or nor a Subby Scalora. They are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with various natures of predicate acts on my street, and with people associated with the Lombardo family and the Jamie Caron. Also, I never had a class with them. I left that class because they were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with judges and prosecutors and police forms, with cliques that were involved with predicate acts as victim predators with overt criminal enterprises, and with private ones, and with uses of their lie progressions, which is relevant, which is increasingly important for why we have to counter. Since the World Trade Center attack, people associated with child campuses and with locations next to them, and with the locations they go to, including stores. This is complete, in other words, we have shared policing too. We have identity ground locations they use for instances and used them in the past. The same people that are recorded effectively being used to attach me and others from the 9/11 context to fake sequence relationships, to fake natures of relationships, to fake relationships at all, to the names that are Washington, D.C. and World Trade Center tied, and therefore their sense and sensibilities. No, use Jane Austen's phrase, as the nervous system of everyone in relationship to that breaching method, that predicate acts delivery system method, that is the subject where and how slavery is brought up. What has to pretend other for a breaching method to keep that screened? So this is a method, the same way computers are a method /S. I tell it best because they can't tell about computers correctly and completely, for example, without being able to tell about instances and locations, honestly. For example. And this is where and how, since before computers, the ancient republic, criminally foreign influence, the sciences, abridged, the Constitution, surface values, abridged, self-valued, abridged, having been self-valued, abridged. That was worse with we used for the lie progressions, right back to all identity ground locations waiting for that. The ancients knew and had revealed naturally before the sciences became contained, tactically contained, criminally foreign influenced, in self-valued roles with that. The Constitution was supposed to be valued unabridged. That means we're supposed to have free speech. Well, see, when they made treatments through time of women's rights, for example, they're measuring self-valued uses, roles with the surface values of the Constitution abridged and employed by a breaching method, having been, and in roles as blaming others themselves for the real causes of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures there. Forcing, hurting, tricking, persuading, and worse, keeping all identities of distinction from its syntax that is about that system that we know is denied. Short words. We're missing how it's denied. Short words, specifically to deny the function, revelations, evolution's fruits and gifts of the protraction of truths of a quality not being used for lies, and not just made up lies pretended to be truths, which are either one, truth as lie / lie as truth, in relationship to what is value as nature / nature as value, as science actually reveals and is capable of revealing. Excuse me. But not while simultaneously defending identities of opinions and of convictions and of roles with, uses of, and only allowed fathom. I mean, uses of instances that are through time connected. They're pretending to take records on people legitimately. They have a theater fake positive where they know it's politics and they're saying it. They're pretending that's value at the finite level. For example, there is complete possession over anyone who tries to protract the short words that uses correlation, how its identity of volume is prevented, means to voice about all the juxtaposed bonded methods and natures of fake care and of torture upon the most forsaken locations, which that is increasingly positive that we can discern that easily. If you debate that, you're going to show criminally foreign influenced premises treatment self-value. You're going to show physical delusion self-value. And see, we were supposed to have experts on the mind to do that. But instead we had experts on the mind that had complete possession, collusion with the branches of government and intermilitary. And then lie progressions and uses of that to all locations. Uses of their identity of volume as fact-shaping nature, everyone's. Kept with the overt criminal enterprises and with the private ones, as actually recorded. Kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, progressive lives together. Roles with methods. By one method, predicate acts delivery system method. Keeps everyone self-cultivating. Even if it's just the identity of negative value nature progression, it's self-valued through phenomenon manifest alone. There is a recorded pattern of self-valued uses of and forced glorification, roles with the forced glorification of, and or roles with blaming the causes of and the existence of on other things or others themselves, that criminally foreign influence database relationships since semi-ancient times. So this just reminds that we have investigations and identity of the ground, print media and news media with the television. WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, and WVIT, I believe it is. I know it's Fox. They played softball in Weathersfield on Millwoods Park. And they confirmed roles with people from Central Connecticut State University that confirmed roles with predicate acts, with judges, prosecutors, foreign and domestic, and federal criminals since before they got caught, like pension thieves and things like that, as people also recorded involved with locations next to schools, like next to Buckley School. When I was an adult, and I tried to report things online, they lie about what's online, they replace it with audio and with video. Because a former mayor and other mayors, they have investigators, interbranch identities that have been persuading them in cases as victims, but as victim predators because of how they have a whole bunch of other countries they have roles with. So when I was in high school, they affected confessions to me from people I don't even know, like just statements when I would be walking by to a location where I was called. They affect things. They affect instances unnaturally. through criminal foreign influence, pretended legitimate reasons. It has, in other words, they had, since I was a kid, when I was a kid, there was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, a whole bunch of different ways that depositions are used in the furtherance of the crimes that they are only allowed to be the nature of to counter. That's evidence per correlation how they were doing that with slavery, with Jim Crow laws treatments, and with physical delusions, and with the people that were supposed to be the experts with integrity about that, in collusion, pretending the legitimate people had delusions, pretending they had conversations, fabricating audio and video to do it, lying about the behavior of people, pretending things are recorded when in audio and video they're not even recorded, and to hide what is actually recorded, while they're delaying time, and then the person has to go into cities so they make more confessions affected, they make more rolls against strangers, and when they say, "Well, I'm not a stranger," we'll have a court decide. The courts are criminally involved with them. The investigators, vetting identities, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. It's not complicated. That's what slavery was about. It was a predicate acts delivery system method. That was sustained. That was extortion, torture. And we could see how that engineered opinions, convictions, physical delusions, rules, predator roles, self-value. The Constitution abridged, and that's screened. Not one has gleaned. This effectively keeps each modern nation sickly victim, effectively keeping each modern nation simultaneously self-valued, victim-predator reactions in the furtherance of what really caused and keeps increasingly how they are victims. Even countries with nuclear weapons, they can't afford, they can't show that they don't have the integrity because they're a victim of certain kind of child abuse method. That is more worse than that, as it also and more subtle simultaneously as the nature, the method roles, because we have to discern its method through these roles, the branches of government, these motivations the branches of government have. These motivations, the overt criminal enterprises, individuals grouped in together as they have them claimed, and as they have themselves claimed as victim predators. Like when they tell you about, oh, this is the gang, this gang operates this street, because they're countering things wrong. Because those gangs are like that, manifest like that, preventing the other kids from having education. They had theirs prevented, their families had their education prevented. The ones who didn't have it prevented, they had to blame. They either blamed other things, others themselves, wrongly for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, and sequence shifts. They either self-valued that roles within as that, or they did not go further. Now, so if someone told you to speak, so I'll get to that. So in other words, they're also separating subjects so they can fabricate audio and video. And they're switching names into branch too, so they're preventing writing, unless it's out of sequence, and roles with recorded, bonded, a whole bunch of different methods of using courts that are originally instilled, pretending passions and emotions, and then needing to hide that, for example, and per what is used remotely, vertically and horizontally, where their motivations and methods are recorded, bound in being and having been exploited, vertically and horizontally, also as the connections between locations next to campuses, intercities, next to little child campuses, uses of homeschool families, uses of that distinction, because of the crime methods that modern nations, courts, and police use individually grouped and together, where they're using and having used their identity ground locations in collusion with things they pretend to be against, like identity thefts and frauds. Much worse was his roles with all the calls and the phones and stuff like that. All the jobs of the law. Then they want to defend themselves. Their identity is abridged. They want to fight as a criminal in citizen's nature because everyone else is, rather than allowing anyone to use short words, the protraction of the short words. So there are people I don't know. There's a Mike Kerr, there's a Jerry Kerr. And his father's name is Jerry Kerr. I don't know, there are people with Maine and people associated with body dumping spots. Now these are street, and that's one of the people that Joe Aiello, and that person himself pretended other, like with little instances, faked instances and sequence shifts. But they also simultaneously recorded themselves, and New Britain Superior Court recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with predicate acts, with a Kerr family, and with an Aiello family. I never had anything to do with the Aiello family. I never had a class with either of those kids, and or the Jerry Kerr. There's a Mike Kerr, there's a Jerry Kerr, and there's girls tied to him and to the intelligence community associated with CCSU, Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. This is from Wethersfield, Connecticut. These are people involved with identity thefts and frauds. And they create instances and exceptions to try to pretend things, and they make them up too. And they sequence shift. And so these are people connected. Then they have the uses of the identity of the campuses this way. And they're simultaneously forced to pretend other even though they want to. So they forge and switch names roles. Then they want to pretend other about that too. Then they self-value means and needs to pretend passions and emotions because they bring their kids' names into it. They bring locations and confessions that bring their kids into it because they need to pretend passions and emotions for how their roles were with locations, crimes with investigations used remotely. A method there too. Overt criminal enterprises too. Recorded how self-valued by themselves and by the branches distinctly, not distinctly, and simultaneously used remotely by the same thing. Even distinct criminal enterprises kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite active progressive identity thefts and frauds roles. They pretend it's about things like politics. It's not by accident. So and then they self-value roles with undercover. They have people associated with acting departments, like the acting department at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved also with a house on the corner of Church Street and Main Street that attached me and my family to fake conversations with him as a doctor. He's also involved with predicate acts with the English department of juxtaposed natures and different people through their roles with the creation of instances and sequence shifts as the people involved leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since. Consciously self-valuing roles with methods that are bound to keep people from functioning while they're pretending to be about making people be able to function. So we have basically, sickly illiterate, tactically illiterate people who are supposed to be the experts on linguistics and on communications. And they're because their self-valuing roles and needs with truths used as lies and overt lies used as truth for self-value, where they're with hundreds of nations in ways where they have the idea, notions of, and there's philosophies and theories on policing, on the law, that are delusions, rules, crimes, and being and having the more and more being used and having been used remotely, they self-value how that was before. So when they speak about types of rights, when they speak about the value of voting, everyone is being measured as a module to the maintenance of what needs to be done to maintain. So everyone will start self-cultivating motivations, needs everyone to blame other things other than themselves. For negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, where correlation nature starts to discern it. And when people get invested, needing, incapable, in other words, when I was in grammar school, as clear as day, I knew I could explain then that and how a breaching method. I didn't even use, I don't know if I even had the word breaching used with me, but how the people that made it against the Native Americans then were involved with the syntax, with the words we were using. Not because it's bad to the emotions, what's keeping it needs to pretend others, pretending it bad to the emotions offensively. Each age of fact-cheaping nature is where a breaching method knew that all identity of the ground locations, identities of database relationship stewards and their family members where everyone lives, that could be used and was used already effectively to keep them to hide live progressions, right to each standing identity of the ground location. Weathersfield campuses and the Weathersfield town office and the Weathersfield police and the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices, houses next to it, and their family members and friends through time, and people all along Route 3, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, victims having been used to make instances that were used criminally, including fabricated ones, where they're using names, is where and how we are an identity, a volume that is increasing as instances since before computers were, as a value progression, right to correlation, where correlation nature is an identity of volume that stays inseparable from its smallest part. Wherever it is making more of itself, or is involved with the process, with the simultaneous value transfer that keeps increasing its identity of complete possession over all parts of space, nature / existence as its identity, making more and more positive forever nature that is also positive onto and as the value of itself, only increasing, or it is forcing it from here, lethal Hades, forced space nature transfer, here where Earth is its concentrated value / value progression inside itself, where and how it can make more and more temporary / lasting forever nature that is positive and also positive unto itself, and where and how that system is not allowed, it forces it from here with a not concentrated value of the rest of space nature becomes more value. So we could bring more value back. Here we have to be like the rest of space nature with no criminal foreign influences. So the courts, Hartford courts, are involved with West Hartford locations, with predicate acts, with investigations. Simultaneously, that was themselves involved with Also intermilitary. There's a Justin Klavinskas. I don't know him. He's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Every once in a while they use him to make instances where he pretends other, including online, including his roles with the principal sex offenders campus, and his roles with medical families on and off the campuses, including with their conjunction with their family members and drug people with the doctors and with the various natures of courts and their family members with the locations. Kept needing to hide the same sequence as find active progressive lies together. Then needed to hide from and kept hurt and or gone the people who could demonstrate that they are fake in cases every day, as they were and are when they speak about it, for example, regarding Jim Crow laws. We have correlation nature as means to demonstrate criminally foreign influence premises treatments that were being self-valued and are being self-valued when people are asked about Jim Crow laws as victim reactions, not just being and having been employed, not just being and having been exploited, not just being and having been exploited as quality of fact, cheap nature, criminal insidiousness, natures of treatments of sequence nature, of finite facts and value and nature, and of active, progressive, and identity nature. The order of physics, the order of metaphysics, in the order of identity, they are bound. And they are bound, and where that is one identity of value / value progression bound, there are two further identities of value / value progression. For example, with the halo, and why Jesus Christ was drawn with the A on the left side of his head and the W on the right side, as English is read from left to right, and as the ancient sciences had already been tactically, criminally foreign influenced since before the time of Jesus Christ, since before the time of Rasulullah, Alhamdulillah, the messenger of Islam. But both the people who preserve the Quran and the people who preserve the Old Testament now pushed into the New Testament to hide what was that first part, and worse. It says all you have to know is right up to here. And you have to write this part first, or you don't understand it. And it knew that people were going to pretend they understood it anyway. It knew that a whole bunch of fake, positive and negative, with integrity identities would be there. So note 2 here. If you want, if say you have someone asks you, or I want to speak to these people, or give a speech at my wedding, and then someone says something crazy or something like that, you're going to ignore it, and you're just going to give a nice speech for the sense and sensibilities of people. It was nice to have President Trump try to counter where and how that is exploited, where there's no integrity. In other words, there's leadership, real leadership is not some punk or someone, some victim, where we're all victims, nor a victim denying they are a victim by saying, oh, well, look how successful I am, or what. Don't pretend to be about integrity of logic if you're blaming on other things others themselves. The real causes of those people most overtly, observably affected by a breaching method that most observably, effectively, is simultaneously effectively keeping self-valued the identity thefts and frauds of our founding parents, let alone of the most forsaken by this method, /S, to stay undiscerned as a simple method from semi-ancient times, since before modern religions. So we could see, discern. Campus Marcius calls you home, please learn. Free education, timeless class. So we have to understand the concentrated value/value progression that can't help but come from the value of campuses, no matter what type of campus you make it. That can't help but come from and as the value/value progressions, identity of quality. No matter what kind of homeschooling you give it. Each identity of the ground location has a relationship to our needs to make positive and negative treatments. Each name, using names of other people, using the names of locations, using sequence. These are people that through time, they know where you're going to walk. They know where you're going to be. So they lie about what sometimes when you're by yourself, or they'll make it look like you were there with someone. Like one time in downtown Hartford, there was a Rick C.M. Faglione. More than one time. All of a sudden pretended they knew me. Like, but made it look like I arrived there with them. And with women associated with the intelligence community. Dozens of people associated with New Britain Superior Court that are involved with private school kids and houses next to the campuses that are also involved with predicate acts on my street, including ones I never saw on my street, and the extended family members involved with the confessions of the Wethersfield police, simultaneously as threats and torture, where and how they are preventing me and others function, and where and how they have been using or already used identity of the ground locations, like Fox Connecticut News remotely, downtown Hartford, St. Anthony's School, is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated also with the Department of Motor Vehicles and the Department of Transportation. And so there are readings of statutes where these locations, which all are these identity of the ground locations, will be and stay victims to sense and sensibilities of people and reacting to other things that are a part of this method /S. That just sounds complicated, but you'll tell like the same way. It's just extensive. The same way you can watch YouTube videos about how computers work. I suggest watching about how CPU works and how microchips work also. But so, in other words, before we could understand and appreciate this properly, we have to understand how our value/value progression works in relationships to memory and identity of the ground locations. And so, in other words, in relationship to what is simultaneous. This method effectively kept and keeps. I don't know if it was clear what I said. So there's Joe Aiello, and he's associated with former Mayor Gold, who is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with him with interbranch and foreign. They create instances where you were going to be. These are also people that pretend we had conversations with themselves and people tied to them. And they pretend we say people are following us as the people that were following us. These are people pretending people have mental diagnosis by fabricating fake conversations with us, exploiting and furthering where courts and police forms find out they were caught with how they use confessions also. They by having a whole bunch of people make simultaneous confessions, they effectively kept and keep people incapable of going back and speaking honestly about locations and other people's names and sequence relationships to how they know their names. Like, to me, I don't know the son of Dean Judd from Central Connecticut State University. He's one of the guys recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. In other words, their family members and stuff, people associated with them, involved with former director of the FBI and with military police families from Wethersfield and from West Hartford, associated with, and from Hartford. Now, say we also have the military families from the urban areas that are, again, distinctly victims of what is inter-campuses and intra-campuses the same way. And if there's homeschool there, that's exploited as well. Because of where and how the sciences don't share an identity, for example. There are exceptions in exception nature showing how they can only share an identity. The notes can only help but be a note distinctly. But they can't help but have their complete identity of volume and its complete identity of relationship to itself. And the complete value of that, which is only increasing, be their relationship to, while as, the other notes. One identity of volume is coming to, from, while as each thing, and while with and for it further. For it further, when our temporary positive as temporary / lasting quality of diffusion is also positive unto itself, this system, its method, that couples with how and why there are 1,995 days in 3 years. 995 days. What is it? 366, 9. 1,095 days in 3 years. And then that's coupled, but 3 years can't help but be a year. Just like the notes. A year is like a note. To be a song, but in other words, to be its complete identity, it can't help but being individually grouped of value, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Because everything distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously has one identity of volumes, a distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to itself, which is its identity of volume to the extent that it is temporary space nature, space/existence nature. Its identity of volume is identity of relationship to itself. And the value of that. tied to our syntax nature, tied to our functioning, individually grouped and together, tied to our functioning or not. So on a mass scale, interstates, we have experts, type of people, their job, I go to the job, I teach people how to, we're going to change our habits and we're going to go like this and we're going to get a job. This is where the politics lying about what the value of job, where that is being and having been exploited, where they create identities of premises treatments, of positive negative treatments, of sequence treatments, of identity treatments, of truth treatments, and of self-value to originally instill physical delusions. When people speak for black or white with physical delusions, there are black families in my town, interbranch, with the white families, interbranch, who are recorded involved with undercover people that white power undercover position, things like that. And the black, they create instances that are in collusion with recorded conscious methodical awareness and pretending other of people preventing correlation from speaking about how the government is fake. The same ones offensively pretending passion emotions, but we're the greatest thing. They want to have fights about nonsense. They self-value how women fell for that tactic with the men because they're victim predators too. Tactically pseudo-educated, sickly distinctly every single person. You don't bring up the simultaneous nature. That was the method to that. The real, they write in books, the motivations of it were money. That's a truth used as lie / lie used as truth, overtly. The motivations were a predicate acts delivery system method that knew in some ancient times, if it could trick, hurt, persuade countries to react to the real cause, to causes of negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, like predicate acts and criminal and seditious natures, wrongly, then and could get them to defend that and to hide that, to blame out other things others themselves. They could further effectively seed the whole world without realizing to and out self-valued roles with the bridge sciences, where and as and how nature would continue to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts in nature, and demonstration of it, and where, as and how each identity of the ground location was his being and having been increasingly self-valued, having been set up to hide the lie progressions that needs to hide, pretending to be integrity. Right tall identity of the ground, positions of correlation nature as it is actually capable of being. And having been, as it is actually having been capable of being. We have all the dysfunction blamed on other things, others themselves, because they are simultaneously pretending people are dysfunctional that are not. They have all kinds of, so they have medicine, and they have medical, and they have those identity of the ground locations involved with juxtaposed natures of organized crime. The same way they have the overt criminals, enterprises, private ones, and the interbranch ones. Evidence racketeering. Way worse than that. Way worse than war crimes. Pretending to be others. Screening it. Valuing having been a victim so they could blame on other things. Use that to screen it. Because that's all they know. So what we do to claim reliefs is blame that which stands in the way, that which denies, that which is unacceptable then and now in the suburbs, let alone. That's what slavery was engineered for most. So when we try to talk about this, the nervous system of everyone already blamed on other things other than themselves. All that caused, all that is being caused by and in, and as when you're blaming on other things other than self, because that was employed. The fact treatment nature reactions, the identity treatments, usages. They are guilty together. There is not one standing identity of the law that is standing integrity. In every modern nation at once, and that's shared. So if one starts admitting it, they can no longer defend how we have defended how each modern nation, where there are only allowed to be the only nature of peaceful counters, syntax counters to all that too, locations, areas, states, how they are exploited. These are not means. And this is not a wedding. And I am not some fake leader. I am not a politician. And you failed your president. You failed your chief because you prevented him the quality of fact-keeping nature to be able to counter sequence shifts that are multi-front. All they need to do is keep everyone confined, blaming how everyone's the perfect world forsaken. Fake science, but pretend to be science anyway. Hyperjournalism is real. The ancient gaming system is real. The pamphleteers is real. Who will set up the pamphleteers to prove that they can be a leader for the liberation of America? Who will take a position that will be recognized? Who says that we're not captive entity /S, every identity, the ground location? To seek reliefs, we're going to seek it in relationship to the methods bound. Because we're going to seek a relationship to that method. And to discern that, we have to, the subject, part of that subject is the identity of negative value nature progression. How it is self-valued. Like those criminally foreign influence database relationships. Those fake identities of integrity that we know existed. Simultaneously, while they are picking out names to say, oh, this is positive though. They're leaving out how all positive, there were overtly / insidious natures of positive treatments and overtly / insidious treatments of negative treatments. To that breaching method that used those sick, crazy, torture, slavery, not free speech and forced to pretend speech. Identity treatments, identity thefts, frauds, roles, identity the ground location uses. Specifically, that's why in Russia they have homes in the suburbs that look just like in the suburbs here. Even though our countries can build planes, we can build engines and construction equipment of any size. Enough of it in a plan where we could just, now this costs nothing. These means are coming in for nothing. The Garden of Eden is a scientific value. The Trinity So I'll do another short video on the Trinity. And people say, oh, it's so Father, Son, Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost, high Omega longs, Omega Y. High Omega longs, why? God's high. Omega sees, tell, / telling. That's feminine. The masculine and the feminine are manifest simultaneously with and as the value of another semi-nature there, invisible but still discernible. Simultaneously as the value of that which is simultaneously onto itself the way it is onto itself. That which is simultaneously two identities of sequence / simultaneous nature, also distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, grouped, individual, and together bound with that, and as that value. Forever's course. I'll drop the force, it surges through all things alone in even force. Bach sings. Each theater course, not acting true. It never knew, but it also did. It does. To have the perfect world is a phrase that is being and having been employed on that mass scale, which prevents free speech, to prevent the integrity of the Constitution from being realized, to prevent that integrity of value transfer that simultaneously increases the value of every person, thing, and location. From taking conjunction to and as the identity of volume that inherits that here, or forces it inherent to being the wrong side of positive value nature progressions, acts in nature somewhere else. Forces Earth's value, distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space nature, that being its distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to itself, forces that concentration from here, Leth of Hadith. So 1,995 days, coupled with the rest of space nature with no criminal foreign influences, it is the value manifest as the identity of 1,100. And this is where there are 3 zeros, our value as nature / nature as value. But they are more nature as the same identity of volume. They are more feminine. 3 identity, and I shouldn't say that because it's both this thing. 3 identities of one, where value is nature / nature is value. They are the value part. They are more of the value part. But it's when it's on to its system, that's the way it works. More infinity is being made. More infinity nature is being made from inside itself. And from outside of itself, simultaneously. There is a simultaneous value transfer from here and coming into here. And simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, every part of that, even the most finite. What comes with that is its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. So it's invisible but still discernible. So everything has a buffer between it and something else.